Hi, and welcome to True Crime, a channel dedicated to the dark underworld of criminal activity carried out by gangsters, mobsters, cartel leaders, and others. In today's video, we will be exploring the story of a young Sicario, a hitman who terrorized the streets of Mexico with his brutal and violent methods. This child hitman became infamous for his ruthless tactics, which included slitting the throats of his rivals. The story of this child Sicario will leave you shocked and questioning how such violence could exist in the world. Let's get started. Edgar Jimenez Lugo, also known as El Ponchis, made headlines in 2010 as the first juvenile hitman in Mexico. Jimenez was born in San Diego and is an American citizen. However, due to his parents' drug addiction and undocumented immigration status, he was removed from their custody by Child Protective Services and eventually placed in the care of his paternal grandmother in Morelos State, Mexico. Despite the difficulties he faced, Jimenez's grandmother enrolled him in a local school and did what she could to support him. Jimenez appeared to be on the right track, becoming a good student, a quick learner, and even achieving perfect attendance at school. Edgar's life took a turn for the worse when he became involved with the Cartel Del Pacifico Sur. He had always looked up to Julio, his sister's boyfriend, who appeared to be successful and polite. However, Edgar soon learned that this was not the case. Julio, also known as El Negro, was a high-ranking member of the gang, and he had taken an interest in grooming Edgar for recruitment into the cartel. Under Julio's tutelage, Edgar began to develop an interest in the gang's activities. He received gifts and was treated like a younger sibling by Julio, who was preparing him for a life of crime. The Cartel Del Pacifico Sur, which is the remains of the Beltran-Leyva cartel, is a notorious organized criminal organization based in the Morelos state of Mexico. Its leaders, Julio de Jesus Radia Hernandez and Victor Valdez, were apprehended in 2011, which made the gang considerably less active. The turmoil in Edgar's life continued to escalate as he became involved with Julio de Jesus Radia Hernandez, his sister's new boyfriend. Julio, who was also known as El Negro on the streets, appeared to be a successful and polite man, but in reality, he held a high position in the notorious Cartel Del Pacifico Sur. Julio and Edgar became fast friends, and the former showered the latter with gifts and attention, making Edgar look up to him like an older brother. However, what Edgar did not know was that Julio was grooming him for recruitment into the cartel. The Cartel Del Pacifico Sur was a Mexican organized criminal organization that was infamous for having a 12-year-old executioner and gunner, none other than El Ponchis. This group had a long and bloody history, and in 2010, it dealt a significant blow with the death of Arturo Valdez. After his death, Valdez's faction split to form its organization, leading Hector Beltran-Leyva, the head of the Beltran-Leyva cartel, to regroup what was left of his operation and call it the South Pacific Cartel. The battles between the two factions left both vulnerable, and several members were arrested or detained in the months that followed. This included Carlos Beltran-Leyva, a brother of Hector and Arturo, who was arrested in January 2010. Valdez Villarreal's top lieutenant was arrested in April, and Valdez Villarreal himself was detained in August of that year. Hector's top security officer, Sergio Villarreal alias El Gran, was arrested in September 2010. As the years passed, the Cartel Del Pacifico Sur continued to face significant setbacks and losses. With the arrest of several of its top leaders and key figures, the organization struggled to maintain its grip on power and control over the drug trade. The group was infamous for its use of child soldiers, including a 12-year-old executioner named El Ponchis. Despite the turmoil, the remnants of the Beltran-Leyva organization remained a powerful force in the Mexican underworld. Several splinter groups emerged, including the Guerreros Unidos and Los Rojos, both of which were known for their high levels of violence and involvement in the disappearance of 43 students. But for Edgar Jimenez Lugo, aka El Ponchis, life took a different turn when he crossed paths with Julio de Jesus Hernandez, also known as El Negro. At first, Julio seemed like a successful and polite man who treated Edgar like a younger sibling. However, it soon became clear that Julio was involved with the cartel and was grooming Edgar for recruitment. Despite this, Edgar was unaware of the full extent of Julio's involvement and looked up to him as a mentor and friend. As Edgar spent less time in school and more time with Julio. Along with other young people, he became involved in providing cocaine to drug dealers in the state of Morelos. However, this was just the beginning of his involvement in the cartel. He allegedly appeared in 2 execution videos, although he did not take part in the deaths that were captured on camera. Nevertheless, between the ages of 11 and 14, El Ponchis was thought to have murdered at least 4 cartel foes. In 2010, when he was just 14 years old, Edgar was detained on suspicion of possessing military weapons and taking part in kidnappings, torture, and murders. Despite his young age, he calmly admitted to having taken part in 4 homicides in front of press reporters after being turned over to authorities. He claimed to have cut his victims' throats. However, because Mexico lacks a federal system for drawing minors, he was only tried in a state court. The Morelos state specifies a maximum sentence of 3 years for criminals aged 12 to 15, which meant that Edgar could not be sentenced to a longer time in prison. Although he was only a drug mule at first, it wasn't long before El Ponchis became involved in more serious crimes. As the sun began to set over Guanabacoa, the city was gripped by a growing sense of unease. Rumors had been swirling for weeks that the South Pacific Cartel had established a new branch in the area and that they were responsible for a spate of brutal killings that had rocked the region. And now, as soldiers detained Jimenez on his way to the airport, it seemed that those rumors might be true. Despite his claims of coercion, the authorities held Jimenez on allegations of murder, drugs, and weapons trafficking. But as the investigation continued, it became clear that the CPS was responsible for much more than just a few isolated murders. They were a well-organized criminal gang that ran protection rackets, drug rings, and kidnapping operations throughout the region. And as the body count continued to rise, it seemed that no one was safe from their brutal campaign of terror. From small villages to sprawling ranches, the CPS had established a stranglehold on the region, flying in cocaine from South America and transporting it by truck to the US border. But despite their growing power, the soldiers were determined to put an end to the CPS's reign of terror. And as they continued to round up gang members and seize their weapons and drugs, they knew that they were in for a long and bloody fight. For the CPS was a force to be reckoned with, a criminal empire that would stop at nothing to maintain its grip on Morelos. But with the soldiers on their trail and the people of the region rising against them, it seemed that their days were numbered. The story of El Ponchis has left a deep mark on Mexico and the world. While his crimes are reprehensible, it's important to understand the factors that led him down this path. Mexico's youth prisons are currently overcrowded, and many young people are vulnerable to being targeted and manipulated by cartels. It's crucial to find ways to prevent this from happening and to provide young people with alternative opportunities that don't involve drugs and violence. One solution could be to increase funding for education and job training programs so that young people have more options for their futures. Another solution could be to provide better support for families and communities so that they can provide a strong support system for young people. It's clear that something needs to be done to address this issue, and it's up to all of us to work together to find solutions. Let's start a conversation in the comments below and share our ideas for how to prevent young people from being played by cartel mobsters. Thank you for watching another amazing video from our true crime team. Like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned to our next real-life true crime video.